The views expressed on the Warren and Bradley Show are not necessarily those held by the hosts, Warren and Bradley, nor those of the proprietors of the website, warrenandbradley.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
Let's make some magic.
Hello, it is magic time. Welcome once again to the Warren and Bradley Show. I am one of your hosts, Bradley Victor.
I am the other host, Warren Van.
There you go. Welcome to episode 24 of the show. Got a lot to talk about today. Don't know if we'll get to it all.
Wow.
We've got a That's How Women Are, I think.
Ooh.
We don't have a Street Freak of the Week, unless you have one. I don't think you have one, do you?
Not that I recall, no.
We'll have some Celebrity Minute for you, and then we'll have just some wonderful talk, as usual, where we just kind of open our mouths and amazing things come out.
Look forward to that, people.
So right off the bat, had a horrible week and a horrible weekend. I don't know how many of you are poor out there. But, I'm going to bitch about it a little bit here.
Brad and I are both kind of poor, so...
Well, Warren is poor in a way, but you're also very, careful with money, and you save money, and you don't live a lifestyle that, I live right on the edge of my lifestyle.
I
usually.
am poor, but I live below my means.
Yeah, and I live right on the edge of my means, and don't, when work is slow, I suffer. And because I'm single and don't have any children, I don't really care. Usually, I'll just go without. But there are certain things that happen every once in a while where I go, and I get really annoyed. And one of those things happened on Friday. I don't know if any of you who've listened to past episodes may have heard of my wonderful Chevy S10 93 extended cab.
It's a beauty.
It was a beast, but a beautiful beast. And it finally died on me as I was driving home from work on Friday. And that whole experience of breaking down in the road, I don't know, has that ever happened to you, Warren?
Yes.
Okay, because you haven't had a car in a long time.
I haven't had a car in 10 years.
Yeah.
I face things like that. I just don't want it in my life. So I've eliminated the car.
It's so stressful and so irritating because not only are you in an obnoxious position where you're like, oh, fuck me, what am I going to do? There's also just the way other people react to your situation.
Yeah.
And I know I was trying to put myself in their position when I'm driving around and I see somebody broken down. I usually try to help if I'm in a position to help, and I don't get angry because I realize they're having a very bad day.
Yeah.
But with me, my clutch basically exploded, and I started ugh. It was the kind of thing where I was revving the engine like crazy and not getting any power because it was just slipping and wouldn't go into gear. And so I managed to limp to the side of the road, and it was in a bike lane. And so I'm sitting there, I'm trying to call people, trying to figure out what my options are, see if somebody can come give me a tow, whatever. I'm obviously very annoyed. And basically just biker after biker or cyclist after cyclist was riding by, and they would go, ugh, and they'd have to just barely get outside of the bike lane to pass my vehicle and then go, Rah! And yell at me as they were running by. I'm like, okay, my hood is open, my hazard lights are on, I'm obviously look harried and annoyed. I'm not just here for the fuck of it, just parked in the bike lane.
But this is emblematic of self-righteous bikers who will obstruct you on the road at any moment, at any time. But as soon as you're broken down slightly and they have to jog around you for 2 feet, they're outraged.
Well, and I think they're just so thrilled when they do have a bike lane. They feel so smug or something about it. And then if anybody actually, and then I had somebody from the Parks and Rec department drove by and yelled at me. Yes, I'm broken down. I'm waiting for a tow. And they're like, you got to move that. I'm like, I know. I'm going to.
It's weird because what you're supposed to do in this situation is offer to help.
Yeah.
Not just yell at people with a broken car.
Well, apparently I was just, for the fuck of it, sitting on the side of the road with my hood open, crying. Well, I wasn't crying. But finally my dad came to give me a tow because I'm not going to pay money for a tow truck.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And I wasn't too far from home. But then what followed was a nice Keystone Cops thing of us trying to hook a tow rope to the vehicle. Yeah. And then him driving at 35 miles an hour while towing me and me going, slow down, because you have a very, very short stopping distance. Yes. And, oh my God, it was just crazy. And then we went over some bridge and he had to slam on the brakes and I almost hit the back of him. And then he just jerked forward again. The tow rope snapped. And I was just in the middle of this bridge, which was even better.
Yeah.
But then I did have one good Samaritan come by in a truck. He was like, "Hey, you need some help?" I was like, "Yes, please." And he just went behind me and went, "Huh," and shoved my truck.
That's
with
what you're
his truck.
supposed to do, people.
Exactly.
If you're supposed to help them out and get them out of the way or help them move.
Yeah. So in the future, if any of you see Warren or I broken down on the side of the road, we'd hope that you would help us because we would help you. So eventually I got the truck home, realized that the cost of repairing it would probably be more than it was worth. And
Yes.
Then went through the whole rigmarole of the Craigslist ad, trying to get people to come get the truck. I put it for $500 on there because obviously it had a lot of issues, and very specifically put in the ad what was wrong with it and what would need to be fixed and why it was so cheap, but still had a ton of people like, "Yeah, I'm calling about the $500 Chevy S10." And you're like, "Yes." And like, "So, how's it run?" I'm like, "Well, in the ad, I said that it needs a completely new clutch rebuild and blah, blah, blah." And they're like, "All right, so if I come and get it, I can just drive it away?" No, you can't you can't get a truck for $500 that is in good working order, okay? But then oddly, all these like men called, people with trailers and like shops and tools and things, and they were all really into it. I sold it within like, I think I put the ad in late in the evening one day, and the next day by 10:30 in the morning, somebody had come and...
There are many of these people about, because I mentioned to you earlier that I had a Subaru Justy many years ago, and the transmission gave out on it, and I was like, what am I going to do with the Subaru Justy? And I put an ad in the paper, because this was many years ago, and some person from a long ways away, Oak Harbor, came with a trailer, just gave me $300 and just picked it up and took off with it. And I was like, yeah, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
I just kind of wonder about being a man like that, having... Yeah, they have vehicles parked around, and some of them are in various stages of disassembly, and they take parts from one, and they go, and they look at, they machine things, and they, I don't know, it's very odd.
But you've seen a lot of these places, too, like in the county, the people that have like lots of cars just sitting around. I think people sometimes have the best of intentions with these cars they bring over, and then they sit and then a bunch of weeds grow over them, and then you have just a bunch of cars around your like double wide, and you're like, well, this is how it started. I was going to start fixing these, but...
Well, yeah, I was thinking it'd be kind of nice if I didn't live in an apartment and I had a yard or a garage, but then maybe I would turn into one of those people, and I don't want to be one of those people.
You don't.
It's good to be in an apartment, because you can't have shit. You can't have junk. Things have to go, and I like things to go.
Well, that's just like anyone that lives in a house for many years, right? And they have a garage, and eventually the garage is just like this mound of garbage in the middle of it because people just keep throwing stuff and they never have to throw anything away. And it just turns into this whole ordeal. Eventually, you have to get rid of it. You just end up throwing things away later and holding them for a long time.
My mom, the last time she moved, I probably shouldn't even say this because I think she started listening to the show, which is great.
Hi, Karen.
But yeah, my God, it was a Mount Everest of crap in the middle of her garage. I don't know if a vehicle had ever been in there, ever. And she was like, "You need to help me move." I was like, "All right." So I go over there, and she's like, "Yeah, we need to start moving things out of the garage." And the garage door goes open. I was just like, good, sweet Lord. As I said, I was like, I thought you had things in boxes. I thought I was going to move you, not organize every possession you owned. And that's just what happens when you have a space like that and you're in the main house and you're like, what are we going to do with this? And you're like, throw it in the garage.
Yeah.
And then it never ends.
And then it just never stops because you never are forced to like resolve the situation until you eventually are. And then it turns into a couple-day ordeal.
Oh, my God. I don't know how many trips to the dump. And then it was that thing, too, where I was like, you don't need these baby clothes that are rat-infested anymore, do you? And she's like, I'm going to throw these away. And it was just every single item was like that, where I was like, what about this light bright that does not work anymore?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, come on.
Have you seen hoarders before?
No.
These houses are just ridiculous. And the yards are ridiculous. And every single thing that people are just fight them on. You know what I mean? Because you get this mentality where you need to have everything. But if you think about your life, the actual things you use in your life, those are the only things you actually need in your house. All the other stuff is just there taking up space forever.
There are certain things that might have some sentimental value that don't have any actual use anymore. And that's one thing. But man, I had an apartment I lived in Los Angeles. I was friends with the manager, and he knocked on my door once and said that somebody had died in one of the units, and that there were a bunch of cats in there, and he wanted my help to try to corral these cats. And so he opened the apartment, and my God, in heaven. Well, whatever. It was basically smelled like a crypt in there because there were dead cats along with live cats. There was human feces and animal feces piled everywhere. There were just bags, like grocery bags, that the person had shat in and then tied closed and then just left a giant pile.
Oh, that's not good.
That wasn't good. Newspapers everywhere. It was just the most disgusting. I can't even understand how anyone in other units didn't notice that this was going on. And then also there were just these crazy feral cats everywhere, like would jump out of cupboards and things and attack you. I got scratched everywhere. It was very disturbing.
The thing about cats is you're maybe 3 tops. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you have more than that, you have like a problem and you're a cat person. And I know one of my best friends who lives in another state has 2 cats and loves her cats very much. And they're both wonderful cats. And she's worried about this being called a cat lady sometimes, I think, too. But I think she has 2. She likes her cats. She takes very good care of them. If she started collecting like 5 cats, then I would feel the need to like step in and be like, no, you don't need this many cats.
I once had a date with a girl who I had met. She seemed very nice. She was very nice.
Yes.
And it was like, this is great. We had a lot in common, blah, blah, blah. We went out on a couple dates, and then she invited me over to her house once. It's like, all right, we'll go over there. And I have a bit of a pet hair phobia. I'm not allergic to anything like cat hair or dog hair, but I have a weird fastidious aversion to getting pet hair all over me. Like, I freak out. I don't freak out, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
But I go to her house, and she had 4 cats.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just basically this film of cat hair covering the entire apartment, and I was just like, ugh. As I walked in, she's like, oh, take a seat on the couch. And it was like an old episode of Ren and Stimpy where they would do the ultra close-up of something and go, da, da. And I just looked at the couch and just saw this bird's nest of cat hair and like, oh God. And so I like gingerly sat down, and then one of the cats, of course, just went, huh, and got right on my lap, because they know whoever is like had any sort of aversion to cats. Well, and I actually like cats, but in that situation I was adverse to them being around. They immediately jump on your lap. And then she was petting the cat and then going against the grain when she was petting the cat.
So that was sending the hair out.
Well, and there was this perfect shaft of sunlight that went down, and I could just see this hair like poof, ballooning up every time she would pet the cat. And I just went, and was like, I have to go. And I left. And then we never went out again.
It is weird about cats, like going after the people who are trying to avoid cats.
Yeah.
I know I was hanging out with some people last night, actually, and one of the people I was with had an allergy to cats, and the cat just goes right for that person.
I've heard that the reason for this is that a friendly greeting among cat kind is to sort of like blink your eyes. So you kind of go, hey, and like squint your eyes at the cats. And so other cats do that to each other. And they're like, oh, you're friendly. And if you stare at a cat, like, okay, let's say you're somebody who likes a cat. You go into somebody's apartment, they have a cat, and you're like, oh, and you look right at the cat and you say hello.
That's like aggressive, maybe.
That's like, oh, the cat doesn't like that. But if you're avoiding their gaze, like, oh, this guy's friendly. I'm going to go jump on his lap and rub my fucking diseased body all over his legs. Or his nice black slacks.
IT guy John has cat allergies.
Yeah.
And he's run across this problem many times, I know. And
Yeah.
I know that I don't know. Do you have pet allergies at all?
Not that I know. Well, I have allergies to maybe to dust or something, and maybe I am allergic to pets, but I don't care.
But you don't notice if you go into like a
No,
cat
it's not
house or
really
dog
bad. I
house
don't
and-
get like anaphylactic shock or anything like that. But
yeah, your sinuses don't close
No.
up and your eyes don't start watering.
I'm kind of always stuffed up, so I don't know.
I am too. Right now, I've kind of got a sinus headache and I've got some thing going on. I don't know what it is.
Well,
it's
it
just
is
like
hay fever season more.
Well, it used to. I don't know. For some reason, it used to not bother me, but now I'm just getting to the point where I'm like, it's really,
Well, they do get worse with exposure.
really. I think
like-
that's what's going on.
People who have really bad nut allergies or peanut allergies, usually it develops and gets worse and worse and worse until you get to the point where if you just get like peanut oil, you'll die immediately.
Well, the cat person last night who didn't want to touch the cat because of the allergy was talking about how they had recently found out she had a strawberry allergy. And she was mentioning that too, that she was afraid that suddenly a bunch of allergies were going to come on. Because that sometimes happens late in life. You'll just start acquiring allergies and you just, sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, whatever. It is disturbing. I went out with a girl once who would die if she ate peanuts, and there was one time where we were out and she went into anaphylactic shock. We were at some Indian restaurant, and of course you're asking, well, are there any peanuts in this? And they go, oh, no, of course no peanuts. And you don't know if they know. Maybe they thought penis. Like, who knows what they thought was going on. But then she took about 3 bites of something and suddenly was like, and I went, oh my God. And luckily she had an EpiPen, so I had to jab her with that.
Yes.
We went to the emergency
I remember
room.
her, didn't she always have this EpiPen with her? I remember. Yes.
She had to carry it with her at all times.
She was always ready for this contingency to occur. because you don't want to die in the Lincoln Inn restaurant. The strange thing about the peanut thing is, too, did that exist 100 years ago?
There's been this ridiculous bullshit with peanut butter and everything lately where they don't let it in schools a lot of places now. You can't bring a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because they say there's so many instances of kids with peanut allergies. It's still only like 1.5% of children have peanut butter allergies or peanut allergies. So it's another one of those things like the gluten allergies and all that.
Well, that's
crap.
what makes me think of the gluten thing, because there are people with celiacs and there are people with severe gluten intolerance. And then in the culture, all of a sudden it becomes like gluten's a poison.
Right.
And everyone becomes, it's like, no, it's just some people have an allergy to it.
Well, and then everyone says that they're allergic because they, I don't know.
This is the thing that I come across. They blame everything that's wrong in their life on the fact they've eaten gluten.
Yeah.
But the peanut thing, I'm just wondering, like, are there more peanut people now?
Supposedly, the instances of peanut allergies have gone up, but it's nowhere near what people are claiming it is at right now. I don't know. I heard some doctor interviewed where he was saying 9 times out of 10 people who think they have food allergies don't really have food allergies. They just you might have a bad reaction to a certain kind of food, but it doesn't mean you're allergic. And a food allergy is a very specific thing, and it has specific symptoms.
Yes.
If you're allergic to gluten, it doesn't just mean like, there's always people like, oh, I just feel like tired and don't have a lot of energy when I eat gluten, so I'm allergic to. No, you're not. You're not fucking allergic to gluten.
But if you eat a bunch of fucking white bread and sit around for a while, you're going to feel a little run down.
Exactly.
And that's not an allergy,
No.
It's your body reacting to it, like attacking it, is an allergy.
We just love to have a scientific basis for... I've bitched about muffins before, how it's always the gluten-free, fat-free, whatever. So there's a bunch of idiots who want to eat their muffins, and they're getting fat and lazy and tired.
But they want to think their muffin's making them healthy.
Well, they want to think that the reason they're fat, lazy, and tired is because of the gluten in the muffin, not because they're eating a bunch of muffins.
A ton of muffins, yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
It gets back to just treating symptoms in a way when really you're never dealing with the underlying problem, which probably has more to do with like the way we treat depression.
Right.
The way we treat everything now is rather than, make some life choices or make some decisions or change your perspective or do something different with your life, you just start taking a pill. We always want it to be something that it's not our fault. There's some external force that's pushing upon us that's causing something to happen. Whether it be going back into psychology and talking about your parents or and all these things do have effects on people. But this is true though, isn't it? Because you do talk about that. You're like, I can't have a relationship or I can't like do anything in my adult life because of what happened in my childhood and stuff. And it's like, well, I've just thrown up my hands and given up. And it's like, everyone has hard things that they have to face.
Yeah. It's this weird thing where people want to be victims because they think that excuses their behavior, but it's so much better to not think of yourself as a victim, because why do people want to feel helpless about everything all the time?
Well, it's weird because I guess because it takes the responsibility out of their hands.
Well, yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, I'm not responsible for what my life's become at this point.
Right.
It's a combination of allergies and like serotonin and and all these problems where it's ultimately more liberating to take your own life into your hands and make of it what you will. But it's also challenging right off the bat to do that.
My life isn't great,
no.
But I have no one to blame but myself. I have no problem. Like I was in this debate with a friend before where they're talking about, the Occupy Wall Street movement and, universal health care and all these things. And he kept bringing up all these points like, well, don't you think it's unfair that this or this or this? I just kept saying to him, I don't feel like anyone owes me anything.
No.
That isn't part of my mental makeup. That just doesn't occur to me. If I'm in a bad situation, I put myself in that bad situation. I've had other opportunities. Everyone has opportunities to get themselves out. And it's just something you can't get across to some people. They just don't get it.
Well, they're just victims of circumstance in every way, right? And the fact that they don't have a lot of money has to do with the fact that Rupert Murdoch has a lot of money.
Right.
Which it's a zero-sum economic thing, which doesn't make any sense.
There's a certain pie, it has a certain amount of pieces.
Yes.
And somebody's eating 2 pieces, and that means you only get a half a piece. And shut the fuck up. All right, I think it's time, Warren, for That's How Women Are.
They say things that don't make any sense, and then they do things that make even less sense than the things they said that didn't make any sense. Oh, they want you to buy them fancy jewels, but when you give it to them, they say you're a fool. Whoa, 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 whoa. 'Cause that's how women are.
So we had a listener actually broach this subject to me. He wanted me to talk about the fact that women often like to let men down easy.
Yeah.
And what I thought about that, and maybe if I could describe and explain why I think women do that. And for those of you who may not know what the hell I'm talking about, say you're at a bar, you see a girl. Like, oh, she's attractive. You go up, you start talking. It seems like you're actually getting along pretty well. She seems very friendly, very polite. And so eventually you ask for the phone number. And she goes, oh, okay. She gives you the phone number. Then the next day you try to call her, and she never calls you back.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this has ever happened to me, obviously, but I think it's a common occurrence. And basically, I think what prompts it is that they're either trying to avoid any sort of awkwardness or embarrassment, or they're just trying to be polite and friendly.
They're being polite in a very... They're being non-confrontational in a sense, in a very like ridiculous way.
Don't ever do that. Ever.
I was discussing this with a friend of mine last night, actually, who has another friend who I know that lives in another part of the country, who is hanging out with this person at her work.
Right.
This guy.
Right.
And they go out to events. They go to sporting events. She's met his parents or something. All these things are going on. She's dating another person.
Right.
But she can't tell him about it because of some work-related thing.
Okay.
But this keeps going on and on and on. And it's like, he obviously thinks that, like, he's making progress here. There's no progress being made at all.
There's been no physical activity whatsoever, yeah.
So but I guess in her mind, she's probably thinking, oh, I don't want to hurt his feelings.
Right.
That's not helping.
No.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, okay, when you think that you're sparing somebody's feelings by pretending you're interested in them when you're not really interested in them, you're wasting their fucking time.
Yes.
That's all you're doing. I want a girl to be completely open and honest with me. If I go up to a girl and say, hey, do you want to hang out? I would like her to say, sorry, no. If she doesn't want to, tell me you don't want to. Don't tell me that you do, and then don't. That is so irritating to me.
No, this is what I think women should do.
Yeah.
This is my advice. Tell the person quietly under your breath that you're seeing somebody else.
Yeah, you can always do that.
And that way you don't hurt their feelings because they're like, oh, I guess you're off the market. And you don't string them along.
Right.
It works perfectly. There's no awkward confrontation.
I agree with you, and that's what I do normally, unless there's somebody asking me out who knows that I don't have a girlfriend because they are... in with the group, or they know people who I know.
Yeah.
And in that case, I might just have to be like, I don't think I could do it, on that particular day, and because you're still showing like, okay, I'm not, if somebody's interested in you, they will make time.
Well, that's the other thing you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
If I ask a girl out and I go, oh, let's do this thing, and she's like, Friday, not so good. And I'm like, oh, okay. How about another time? And she's like, well, yeah, sure, whatever. And then, like, I go, how about Wednesday? And she's like,
yeah, I
gotta, like, wash my hair and, like, my cat needs to go to the vet. At that point, you're supposed to go,
okay, yeah, you're not
I understand. You're in a way you're telling me that you don't want to go out with me in a way that's not going to hurt my feelings. It's not going to be an awkward confrontation.
Right.
So at that point, you're supposed to stop.
Right.
The problem is, of course, that there are people that just are like,
that's true.
Man, you're busy. And then just keep going forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, they don't quite get the hint.
No, but I guess those people eventually have to be like, stop.
Right.
This isn't working out. This isn't something that's going to happen.
And so I guess I can be okay with that if a girl makes it as clear as she can without being completely blatant about it. That's fine. But what irritates me, and what I think irritates the listener, is when, let's say, you do that whole exchange, and she says, "Oh no, Friday doesn't work." And then you go, "Well, how about another time?" She's like, "Yeah, okay, sure. Why don't you call me later this week?" And then nothing happens.
Yeah.
That is irritating. So that also goes in the whole thing of the girls pretending that men are friends when they're not really their friends.
Yes.
And acting like they don't realize that the guy is actually interested in them, even though they obviously know that the person is interested in them, because they want the benefit of the friendship, whether it be companionship or an activity partner, but they don't want any of the hang-ups of the actual relationship. And so they just willfully ignore the fact that the guy is just like desperately in love with them.
Yes.
And that is horrible as well. And
that
men don't seem to do that anywhere nearly as much as women do.
No, they don't. For you men, I know this is how women are, but
well, it's good.
If you're in these situations and this is happening to you, and I know it's easier for you to be like really optimistic about the situation, be like keep hoping that something's going to go on. At some point, you need to like realize what's happening and just stop doing that.
I think men have a tendency to feel like if they're just there enough,
Yes.
Eventually, maybe she'll get drunk, or she'll have a fight with her
Jesus.
boyfriend or something. And if you just happen to be there at that perfect opportunity, then maybe something will happen. And maybe it will 1% of the time, but it's not worth it. It's not worth putting in months and months of being completely unfulfilled and lovelorn, going after this woman who does not give a shit.
The whole thing with relationships is, right, it's all about, like, pulling the Band-Aid off. Just pulling it off. You want to do that with breakups.
Yeah.
You want to do that with, like, stopping chasing after somebody. Just be done with it. Don't let it linger. Don't let it keep going forever and ever and ever and ever, because it never gets any better. Yeah. It only gets worse until eventually you have to pull the Band-Aid off anyways, but it's 2 years later.
Yeah. I admire girls who... Well, some people would consider this like bitchiness or something, but you see some guy annoying a girl in a bar, and there'll be some girls who are like, okay, and trying to be nice, trying to be polite, but the girls are just like, leave me alone. I'm not interested. I'm like, okay, that's nice. That's good, because even though that guy's a dick, at least he knows he can stop being a dick to you, and he can go and be a dick to somebody else. But, in a perfect world for me, I could see a girl, and I'd say, hello, do you have any interest in me whatsoever? And she could say, no, I don't. And I'd say, okay, thank you. And I'd go up to another girl and say, do you have any interest in me whatsoever? And she'd say, yes. And I'd say, okay, let's hang out. And she'd say, okay.
Some sort of system where you just, like, look at a girl and give them a shrug.
Yeah.
Gives you an up or down, like the Romans or something. It's like,
some sort of sign language or something. I do like the idea of some sort of single... identification number or something, or maybe like a pendant that people would wear. So if you're actually available and looking for a partner, you could maybe flip your pendant in one direction and people would be like, all right, she's available. And then what you do is from across the bar, you like flash your pendant, and she has her available pendant showing, and if she's into you flashing your pendant at her, she will turn her pendant and flash it back.
Oh, Jesus.
Or we could just ask each other verbally, I suppose.
I suppose. This seems pretty elaborate. You know about the flagging thing, right?
The gay thing?
Yeah. That's. I don't know if that actually works, or actually...
Yeah, I've always heard about that, but I don't... I mean, I guess I've had gay friends, but I've never asked if that actually exists. I think it's always very specific to a certain city or culture or something, isn't it?
It must be, right? Because... I mean, I've known gay people talk about it, but I've never actually known a gay person that actually, like, implements that.
Well, and I remember trying to actually notice if all these gay people had bandanas hanging out of their pants, and I've never really noticed this.
No, I don't. I assume it goes on, like, in very large cities. Now I'm really curious, because I do want, because there is supposed to be this whole thing where you're doing.
Well, I've had people do that to me. Like some friend in LA once, I had a bandana in my back pocket, and he's like, "It means you're down to fuck."
Yeah,
in the ass. I was like, "What? Yeah. What are you talking about?"
I had the one's like, "Oh, you're into fisting." I'm like, "Am I?" What do you mean? And then or the yellow one, which I found out means you're into like urine stuff,
and it matters which pocket.
Yeah, if you're on the left, you pee on people. If you're on the right, you're getting peed on. Brown, of course, is another one for obviously what it's for. And there's like this whole list of them.
Well, so maybe women could do this. They could get some sort of flagging system going. But then there's always, people like to try to throw little variations in there, and then you're never sure if you're reading the right sign. Why don't people just go up to each other and say exactly what's on their mind? Without being completely tactless,
Yeah.
Let's just work on that, people.
You're supposed to be able to do it in a way that, like, gets it across, and the other person's supposed to, like, recognize those signs, and that's how we're supposed to do things. But I guess our signals get crossed sometimes because we aren't that direct.
Well, there's the other thing, too, of you actually do go on a date with someone.
Yeah.
And then during the date, they're like, oh, well, next time we do this, or we'll do this, we'll do this. You're like, okay, that means we're going to go out again, and then you never hear from them again. Just don't pretend to be that into somebody if you're not into somebody.
Yeah.
You're doing much more harm than good.
It doesn't seem that hard to just be like, say things in a way like, don't talk about the next time or whatever.
Yeah.
Or be like, as the date ends, be like, I'm really busy for the next like 6 months, like all the time.
It's very easy to make it very clear to somebody that you don't want to see them
without
again.
saying, I don't want to see you again.
Yeah.
But.
So letting men down easy. It's not so easy.
No, it's not so easy, and I know it feels weird right off the bat to do it in a severe or like way, but go ahead and do it.
Yeah, just practice in the mirror or something, or else you could get a friend and you could practice letting them down not so easily, just being more direct and clear.
If you're a very attractive woman who gets hit on a lot, maybe you'll do this.
Well, hopefully by next week, if all our female listeners start practicing this won't be how women are.
Thousand tears. Yeah, they like to put pretty purple panties on. And then they turn around and tell you that every little bit of thing you've ever done is always wrong. Well, they like to cry when they stub their little toe. But no, they don't cry when they tell you to go. No, no, no. Yeah, that's how women are. Yeah, I'm talking about how women are. Whoa, women are. Yeah, women are. That's how women are.
Da, 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 da. It's time for the Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show.
Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show.
All right, then. Celebrity Minute time. Our very first story, Justin Timberlake. I looked like a moron when I was in NSYNC.
I don't like this. I don't like the fact that he's saying this.
Well, why do you say that?
This is the thing about everything that he does, right?
Uh-huh.
In 10 years, he's going to look back at what he's doing now and say he looks like a moron.
No, he actually doesn't look too bad right now.
But I mean, on the music, what's the difference between like the music videos he does now and the ones he did in NSYNC? Besides, where he's with a bunch of other guys.
Well, let's see what he has to
he
say.
Like prances around and goes like, ooh, 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 you know. I mean,
he does look like a freak when he's dancing, but in terms of his actual style, he looks a little better than he did back in those days.
He's talking about what he wears.
What he wore then. He says he has only one regret in his career: sporting over-the-top costumes and seriously cheesy hair during his NSYNC days. There were many moments in my teenage years where I succumbed to the weirdness of the group I was in. He tells the May issue of Details, and in trying to conform, were marionettes. I ended up looking like a moron. I think he might have something to do with like the checkerboard vests that he would wear and the very high hair that was kind of frosted on the top. And
okay,
there were a lot of problems back then.
Think about your life, though, you celebrities. You may look back on what was going on 10 or 20 years ago and be like, man, I look like an idiot.
Yeah.
You look like an idiot now.
Yeah.
Everything you're doing now is ridiculous and stupid. And in 20 years, you're going to look back and be like, why was I doing that? Don't be so hard on your past self if you're not going to be hard on your present self.
Well, I don't know if he's being that hard on himself either. He says that's his one regret in his life.
I think it's odd if you watch like Behind the Music on VH1 and they have like the members of Poison and they're still dressed the same way they were when they were in Poison.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
I actually kind of like that when people just go, okay, I'm picking this style and I'm going to stick with this for the rest of my life.
I guess that's when you made all your money and the only time anyone cared about you at all. I guess you're going to stick with that.
And it's one thing if you're a rock star because you can sort of understand, okay, he's 65 and he's dressed like that. It looks kind of ridiculous, but at least he's a rock star. But occasionally you'll run into people who are, 65, 70, and they're still dressed the way they did when they were 14 or 15.
Yeah.
It looks a little weird, but at the same time, again, I kind of like it if people are just like, I picked this. This is the era that I was the most complete and happy in, perhaps. So I'm just gonna carry this through as long as I can.
I guess if you're a rock star too, I mean, everyone goes, "Oh, that's the drummer for Cinderella or something," and everyone's like, "Oh, yeah, that's why he dresses like that." Yeah. I guess that's works.
Well, imagine like Keith Richards and those people looking their age and trying to look respectable. Wearing a little like tweed suit or something and walking around. I just don't know if it would work.
It works much better, I think.
Well, I think it does, but at the same time,
makes you look dignified.
He's Keith Richards, so
yeah.
I mean, I look forward to being 80 years old and wearing a little suit and like fedora all day, and maybe a walking stick.
You'd love to do that right now.
Well, I would, but I can't get away with it right now. But when I'm 85, it'd be great. So next story.
Pregnant Anna Paquin says, my bisexuality is not made up.
Yeah, I don't really get who is throwing these accusations of non-bisexuality at her. Yeah,
they did this. They did like a public service announcement, right, where everyone they showed a bunch of celebrity and people would be like, "I'm bisexual, I'm straight, I'm gay," and people are like, "Ooh, she's bisexual."
Right. Well, I think the thing that happens is that if somebody comes out as bisexual, a lot of the gay and lesbian community yells at them saying that you're just pretending to be bisexual so that you don't have to say you're gay because you think it's somehow more palatable to society at large to be bisexual. And the fact that now she's pregnant, who the fuck cares?
Let me tell you this. If you're... a gay person that's, trying to call everybody out based on their sexuality and what they ID as, and if they don't come out fast enough, fuck you.
Yeah, you
have
them.
no place to like call other people out on what they're doing with their life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you don't want that done to you, don't do it to other people.
Well, and the fact that what one person who may be gay does means it impacts the entire community, fuck off. It's who the fuck cares?
It's the whole point is that you're supposed to be able to do your own thing,
right?
And not have people like stomping all over your ass and treading on you.
And I thought it was about tolerance.
It's supposed to be about tolerance, isn't it?
Maybe some of the people who preach tolerance are the least tolerant of all.
I've noticed this too. We've noticed this before.
So who the fuck cares if Anna Paquin is actually bisexual? She's gonna have a baby.
Yeah, have your baby. Do whatever you want to do. Be happy. I don't care.
Oh, Warren, some tragedy in the NFL community.
Oh.
Junior Seau found dead. Warren, you had quite a reaction to this story.
I know he committed suicide by shooting himself in the chest.
Right.
Which I know another NFL player has done in the past because they wanted to preserve their brains because their brains have been horribly damaged during their football careers. And, of course, the only way you can actually diagnose that is post-mortem.
Right.
This is a very disturbing and chilling trend.
Well, there seems to be a trend of even people who have not actually committed suicide after they retired. There seems to be a huge prevalency of horrible depression and all sorts of neurological problems.
Very early onset dementia.
Right.
When they do autopsies, they're finding a lot of horrible damage in there. This is not good for football.
Do you think that they can keep going on the way they're going on without some sort of major overhaul to either the protective gear or the way the game is played? Because when you have 400-pound linemen wearing these helmets that are basically like a brick wall, they're going to use it as a weapon. Do you think they need to go back to the little leather helmets that they used to wear back in the day?
This is from football experts, from what I've heard. If they did do this, this would help. Because you can't have the kind of violent contact happen if you don't have a helmet on.
You would wrap people up.
You'd wrap people up. You do things like that. That might be the only thing that would save it. It's unimaginable, though, they would actually send people out without helmets, right?
Well, yeah. It's almost like the genie's been let out of the bottle. I don't know if you can put it back in. But remember when we had our brief rugby stint?
Yes.
Nobody got hurt really that bad.
In rugby, you get, like, beat up physically, but you're not going to get dementia, probably not, because you're not going head-on at somebody as fast as you can and go head-to-head against them.
Right.
The problem with these NFL athletes is the fact that they are now humongous, over 300 pounds. Many of them are extremely fast. The people that are over 300 pounds are faster than fast people were 100 years ago.
Yeah, it's very frightening.
And so you put all these people out in a field together, and they're running at each other at these incredible speeds, and there's so much inertia that there's no way they're not going to get hurt horribly.
It just seems like maybe the current crop of players that we have now have been brought up in this style of play, and it might be impossible to ever change that. But maybe if, I don't know, if you could incrementally make some changes.
The thing is, they're going to have to do something at some point, because I don't see this changing or ending anytime soon. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And over the years, it has been getting more, bad for the NFL.
Well, let's hope that things change.
Well, I hope so. I don't want people shooting themselves in the chest to preserve their brains. It's disturbing.
Everybody's favorite fuck-up former child star Amanda Bynes involved in yet another accident. Apparently this time it was a hit-and-run as she sideswiped another vehicle while she was trying to pass on the right in her Range Rover SUV. She just blithely continued down the road, but apparently cooperated with the police when they caught up with her, telling the authorities that she didn't realize she had struck the other car.
No.
Just like she didn't realize she'd hit the police car when she was horribly drunk.
What are we looking at here with Amanda Bynes at this point? When these things are, you see the sequence of events, you're starting to wonder if...
I'm thinking complete meltdown is imminent.
OD?
I don't know. I don't know if she does the hard drugs. She likes to have a drink. She likes to get a little tipsy and get behind the wheel.
These things start to spin out of control eventually.
She'll probably end up killing some, Ethiopian immigrant or something in her vehicle.
Who's going across the crosswalk or something.
And that'll be the end.
Yeah.
So is that enough for Celebrity Minute? Have we exhausted everything that...
Yes.
This has been Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show.
And we're back. So I was walking down the street the other day.
Yes.
And there's this little fat kid I was watching. There's a certain age of child where they're not really good on their feet yet.
Yeah.
And it's amusing. I like watching them because sometimes they fall over. And when they do, it's just like...
Oh, the thing where they go right on their ass?
Oh, yeah.
Like, instantly.
Yeah. There's no kind of like, waffling around. It's just like, they're immediately over. And there was this little fat kid, just morbidly obese little kid. I actually felt sorry for him just as he was walking, because it was basically his face was so fat that it had closed up. His eyes could barely peer out. And I don't know what the fuck his parents are doing, but they should probably be put in jail. But he had this big backpack on. He was like trundling along, and he went and fell over on his back. And then he was just there like a beetle, and he could not roll back over again. He was just like rolling and rolling on this big backpack on his back.
Pathetic.
Until finally his mother, who was also morbidly obese, came and just went and picked him up by the scruff of his neck and pulled him upright again. What do we have here? Oh, it's the train break.
This is a train break.
It's a weird thing. I think a lot of the options have to do so we're not getting any more words, right?
Okay, that was an excellent train break.
Well, your fat kid puts me in mind of a story that was sweeping the nation this week. I don't know if you heard about it. The 5-year-old child that was horribly burned, and come to find out, left in the old tanning bed too long by mama.
They put their 5-year-old kid in a tanning bed?
Oh, and you should see the mother. She looks like a raisin.
Oh my god.
Yes. Reprehensible.
That is so disturbing to me. Fucking anyone who self-tans, go fuck yourself, idiot. What the fuck is wrong with you? Why is looking brown good? It's fine for people who are brown.
Yeah.
They look good brown because they're supposed to be. White people look like idiots when they're tan. I mean, a little color is fine. It's like, oh, you look healthy, even though it's not healthy. But when people get to this ridiculous... I actually met George Hamilton once when I worked at when I worked at Bloomingdale's in L.A., oh my fucking god. If you see him in real life, you want to vomit.
Yeah.
It's
I believe
insane.
It. Yeah. It's not healthy.
It looks
either.
so stupid. White people should look white. That's the color of our skin. When you tan like that and your hair gets all bleached and you're all like, meh, I just want to slap the fuck out of people.
It's a weird thing to do.
Tanning pisses me off. It really pisses me off.
It's creepy. And
I can't avoid the sun because I work out in it all the time. And even me, I've got this weird hat that's like this crazy coolie kind of, or I can't say that kind of.
No, I think coolie's fine. There's people that made the Chinese food.
Yeah, but isn't that a racist term?
No, I don't. I think terms that were used in the 19th century that are no longer used, I think you're allowed to say.
Okay, maybe. Anyway, it's like this weird sun hat, and I wear a long sleeve shirt in the summer because I don't want to be horribly, and I still end up getting
One thing we
discolored.
do know is that we've come to find out that tanning's bad for you.
Yes.
And getting a lot of sun and getting burned is bad for you.
Yes.
And it makes me think, at some point, are we going to start shutting down tanning booths? Is there going to be a push for that?
I'm surprised that there isn't, because pretty much anything else that's, quote, bad for you in our society is...
You think about it, it's weird that no one's been doing that.
Well, it's because celebrities are never going to get behind that cause.
I guess not.
You know? Yeah. They don't want to be all pasty. Well, they can use their spray-on bullshit that runs down their leg.
Well, I wonder, what period in time did tanning become, like, cool? Because it was used to always be, right, that you wanted to be very fair
You wanted
white.
to be pale because it showed you weren't a commoner working out in the fields. And I think as soon as we moved from an agricultural society to an industrial society, tanning meant that you weren't a worker bee stuck in a factory all day.
Yes.
So if you were out, if you had leisure time, it meant you could be out and enjoy the sun, go to the beach, whatever.
Oh, that's what it signifies, right? The fact that you're like on your yacht and stuff, getting sun all the time.
It's the same thing with weight. Whereas
used to be you want a little plump.
Yeah, you wanted to be fat because that meant you were rich,
prosperous. Yes.
But now poor people are fat, and rich people are skinny. Everything's all fucked up.
It is weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we live in a strange time.
So I'm skinny, and if I could be, I'd be pale all the time. So
yes.
So I'm half rich, half poor looking.
But you're truly poor all the way.
Yeah. That's probably enough.
Yeah, it's good.
This has been the Warren and Bradley Show, brought to you by Warren Van and Bradley Victor. For podcast news and information, like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/Warren and Bradley. Follow the show on Twitter at Warren and Brad. Subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. For episode archives and episode pictures, go to warrenandbradley.com, and to contact the show, write to podcast@warrenandbradley.com.
I'm going to bitch about it a little bit here.
Brad and I are both kind of poor, so.
Well, Warren is poor in a way, but you're also very careful with money, and you save money, and you don't live a lifestyle that I live right on the edge of my lifestyle.
I
usually.
am poor, but I live below my means.
Yeah, and I live right on the edge of my means, and don't, when work is slow, I suffer. And because I'm single and don't have any children, I don't really care. Usually, I'll just go without. But there are certain things that happen every once in a while where I go, and I get really annoyed. And one of those things happened on Friday. I don't know if any of you who've listened to past episodes may have heard of my wonderful Chevy S10 93 extended cab.
It's a beauty.
It was a beast, but a beautiful beast. And it finally died on me as I was driving home from work on Friday. And that whole experience of breaking down in the road, I don't know, has that ever happened to you, Warren?
Yes.
Okay, because you haven't had a car in a long time.
I haven't had a car in 10 years.
Yeah.
I face things like that. I just don't want it in my life. So I've eliminated the car.
It's so stressful and so irritating because not only are you in an obnoxious position where you're like, oh, fuck me, what am I going to do? There's also just the way other people react to your situation.
Yeah.
And I know I was trying to put myself in their position when I'm driving around and I see somebody broken down. I usually try to help if I'm in a position to help, and I don't get angry, but crying. Well, I wasn't crying. But finally, my dad came to give me a tow, because I'm not going to pay money for a tow truck.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And I wasn't too far from home. But then what followed was a nice, Keystone Cops thing of us trying to hook a tow rope to the vehicle, and then him driving at 35 miles an hour while towing me, and me going, slow down, because you have a very, very short stopping distance. Yes. And, oh my God, it was just crazy. And then we went over some bridge and he had to slam on the brakes and I almost hit the back of him. And then he just jerked forward again. The tow rope snapped and I was just in the middle of this bridge, which was even better. Yeah. But then I did have one good Samaritan come by in a truck. He was like, hey, you need some help? I was like, yes, please. And he just went behind me and went, huh, and shoved my truck.
That's what you're supposed to do, people.
Exactly.
You're supposed to help them out and get them out of the way or help them move.
Yeah. So in the future, if any of you see Warren or I broken down on the side of the road, we'd hope that you would help us because we would help you. So eventually I got the truck home, realized that the cost of repairing it would probably be more than it was worth. And then went through the whole rigmarole of the Craigslist ad, trying to get people to come get the truck. I put it for $500 on there because obviously it had a lot of issues, and very specifically put in the ad what was wrong with it and what would need to be fixed and why it was so cheap, but still had a ton of people like, yeah, I'm calling about the $500 Chevy S10. And you're like, yes. And so because I realized they're having a very bad day.
Yeah.
But with me, my clutch basically exploded, and I started it was the kind of thing where I was revving the engine like crazy and not getting any power because it was just slipping and wouldn't go into gear. And so I managed to limp to the side of the road, and it was in a bike lane. And so I'm sitting there, I'm trying to call people, trying to figure out what my options are, see if somebody can come give me a tow, whatever. I'm obviously very annoyed. And basically just biker after biker or cyclist after cyclist was riding by, and they would go, ugh, and they'd have to just barely get outside of the bike lane to pass my vehicle and then go, Rah! And yell at me as they were running by. I'm like, okay, my hood is open, my hazard lights are on, I'm obviously look harried and annoyed. I'm not just here for the fuck of it, just parked in the bike lane.
But this is emblematic of self-righteous bikers who will obstruct you on the road at any moment, at any time. But as soon as you're broken down slightly and they have to jog around you for 2 feet, they're outraged.
Well, and I think they're just so thrilled when they do have a bike lane. They feel so smug or something about it. And then if anybody actually, and then I had somebody from the Parks and Rec department drove by and yelled at me. yes, I'm broken down. I'm waiting for a tow. And they're like, you got to move that. I'm like, I know. I'm going to.
It's weird because what you're supposed to do in this situation is offer to help.
Yeah.
Not just yell at people with a broken car.
Well, apparently I was just, for the fuck of it, sitting on the side of the road with my hood open. Well, how's it run? I'm like, well, in the ad, I said that it needs a completely new clutch rebuild and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, all right, so if I come and get it, I can just drive it away? No, you can't you can't get a truck for $500 that is in good working order, okay? But then oddly, all these like men called, people with trailers and like shops and tools and things, and they were all really into it. I sold it within like, I think I put the ad in late in the evening one day, and the next day by 10:30 in the morning, somebody had come and...
There are many of these people about, because I mentioned to you earlier that I had a Subaru Justy many years ago, and the transmission gave out on it, and I was like, what am I going to do with the Subaru Justy? And I put an ad in the paper, because this was many years ago, and some person from a long ways away, Oak Harbor, came with a trailer, just gave me $300 and just picked it up and took off with it. And I was like, yeah, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
I just kind of wonder about being a man like that, having... Yeah, they have vehicles parked around, and some of them are in various stages of disassembly, and they take parts from one, and they go, and they look at, they machine things, and they, I don't know, it's very odd.
But you've seen a lot of these places, too, like in the county, the people that have like lots of cars just sitting around. I think people sometimes have the best of intentions with these cars they bring over, and then they sit and then a bunch of weeds grow over them, and then you have just a bunch of cars around your like double wide, and you're like, well, this is how it started. I was going to start fixing these, but...
Well, yeah, I was thinking it'd be kind of nice if I didn't live in an apartment and I had a yard.
The views expressed on the Warren and Bradley Show are not necessarily those held by the hosts, Warren and Bradley, nor those of the proprietors of the website, warrenandbradley.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
Let's make some magic.
Hello, it is magic time. Welcome once again to the Warren and Bradley Show. I am one of your hosts, Bradley Victor.
I am the other host, Warren Van.
There you go. Welcome to episode 24 of the show. Got a lot to talk about today. Don't know if we'll get to it all.
Wow.
We've got a That's How Women Are, I think.
Ooh.
We don't have a Street Freak of the Week, unless you have one. I don't think you have one, do you?
Not that I recall, no.
We'll have some Celebrity Minute for you, and then we'll have just some wonderful talk, as usual, where we just kind of open our mouths and amazing things come out.
Look forward to that, people.
So right off the bat, had a horrible week and a horrible weekend. I don't know how many of you are poor out there, but...